G'day. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Owen Johnston, Head of Sales and Marketing here at HBA. Today, we've got a wide-ranging conversation to do with our favourite topic, that is hops. Hops in beer in all its settings. Innovation, on-farm experiences, consumer trends, and the impact in the brewery. Joining me for this conversation are three legendary brewers. Thanks, guys. Thanks for making your time available to us today. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Matt Howgate from Vocation in the UK.
How you doing? You all right?
Good, man. Thank you. Thanks again for making time. I appreciate it's late over there. Justin Corbett sitting in Melbourne.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning indeed it is. And over on the west coast of the USA, Jeremy Moynier from Stone Brewing in Escondido. Hello, mate.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Happy afternoon here.
Brilliant. Now, looks like we're coming from a bunch of different locations today, although it's not a true reflection of who's actually been working. Matt, I appreciate you had a very early start this morning. Justin's actually at work and coming live to us from his laboratory at the brewery. And Jeremy, I guess you're at home?
I'm in my office.
In your office? Perfect.
Locked in my office with a beer.
That is fitting. Perfect. Well, guys, again, thank you. Thanks for making time for us. And let's kick off by a little bit of a around the table, bit of an intro. Tell us a little about yourself, how you got into brewing, the scope and scale of your brewery, your role, what floats your boat while you're in the job. Matt, let's start with you, mate.
My name's Matt Howgate. I'm the head brewer, production manager at Vocation Brewery in England. I've been in charge at Vocation Brewery now for about 3 years. We're a new brewery recently. We were started in 2015, so we've only been going for a small time. Most of the beers we make are kind of sort of the new age sort of hoppy style beers, which we've seen on the market. We're based in the north of the UK, north of England. We've got a lot of brewers around us who are kind of doing the same thing, and really part of a changing scene in the UK with what people are after in terms of products and beers. The brewery itself is gone through some significant growth recently. We supply a lot of beer around the UK to some of the major retailers. We do a lot of beer to export, which is a growing market. We've sent some in the past out to Australia as well, so maybe you might have seen some of our beers out over there where you guys are based. We're a busy brewery, very busy. As Owen mentioned, it's been a long day for me. It's 9 o'clock over here now in the UK, and I was up this morning at 5 o'clock getting to work to go work on the canning line where we were producing around 150 hectolitres of New England style beer made with Galaxy hops. So yeah, it's great to be part of it. It's great to join you guys and to be among some other great brewers talking about new products and hops. So I'm really looking forward to tonight and seeing what comes out from this chat.
Good on you, Matt. That is just music to my ears. Up early, straight on the line, packing a beer made with Galaxy. Couldn't be better.
Yeah, it was fantastic. The smell coming off the canning line this morning was great. You know, we use Galaxy quite a lot in the brewery, especially with Citra. And yeah, this beer we're making was fantastic smelling this morning. Even at that early, it was still great.
Interesting, you comment on, we'll come back to it, but interesting you comment on the fact there's a bit of a collective of breweries around you doing a similar thing, and that trend is, it's more than just a fad, isn't it? It's got some real momentum. Let's hear from Justin Corbett, mate. Introduce yourself, please, and the brewery.
Hey, my name is Justin Corbett. I'm the head brewer here at Deeds Brewing down in Melbourne, Victoria, in Australia. The brand itself has been around for about 8 years, but the brewery itself, we built it at the back of 2018, and we started brewing beers here in early 2019, and we very quickly found that we had a taste for brewing big hoppy IPAs and double IPAs and hazy IPAs, and we found that there was a market for it, and which is pretty exciting given I'm from the States originally, and we knew what was going on with IPAs in the States for a long time. So starting back then, a couple of years ago, we started going, and I think we started developing some pretty solid beers and recipes and some different things using, Australian hops and American hops and New Zealand hops, which are great to have access to down here. And since then we've really gone full bent on producing those beers on a almost weekly basis, coming out with something new constantly. And our tap room is due to open hopefully in the next couple months. So we're pretty excited about getting that up and running.
Justin, that's quite. I've been observing your brewery for quite a while now, and it's a really fantastic journey you guys are on. And again, we're touching on that sort of hops in combination or solo. Like I think Deeds and Vocation have a lot of similarities. We were having a bit of a chat just off screen, and it's some of those trends are definitely across the globe, and exciting times that the tap room's opening, so I can drop in on you unannounced.
Anytime, always welcome. Always welcome.
Oh, thank you. Over to the States, Jeremy, mate. Thank you for making time and joining us, and mate, really good to see your face. It's been a couple of years since you were on farm.
Yeah, it's been too long, and I was hoping to get out there last year, but obviously things went awry. But yeah, Jeremy Monnier, Senior Manager of Innovation here at Stone Brewing. I've been at Stone almost 17 years now. Got into brewing because I was tired of wine. So actually was in the wine industry for about 8 or 9 years, but we kept gravitating towards beer, and especially craft beer was really coming along at the time. So really happy to be here today. Excited to reconnect with OJ and HPA. Stone has been around. We're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary this summer. So we're hoping to have a proper party this year, since we couldn't have an anniversary party at all really last year. But pretty much from the start, hop forward brewery. And our first anniversary beer was an IPA. And after a few years of doing more and more amped up IPAs as anniversary beers, we did one of the first local, in rotation, nationally released IPAs, packaged IPAs anyway. So, always been into hops from different areas, America, Australia, New Zealand, abroad, always looking at what we can do differently with hops. And man, last, decade, things have changed so much in the beer industry and in hops, and especially in the last 5 years. And it's just wonderful to see the choices we have as brewers these days. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, it's been Stone's been an incredible piece of the landscape, I think, in the craft brewing scene globally, and certainly one of those breweries when I was running a brewery myself that we'd keep an eye on and look forward to seeing, like, if you can find a Vocation beer out here, if you could find a Stone beer out here in Australia in those early days, it was rare as hen's teeth, we call it. Not sure if you guys have a saying such as that. It is interesting, and Jeremy, you sort of touch on how awesome it is to see consumers selecting hop forward styles, and we live in hop world, and it's but it is, I think, a really exciting trend that people are still choosing the innovative iterations of IPAs, and the fact that new styles of hop forward beers are still coming out, like Matt and Justin have touched on already. Matt, over to you, mate. You recently worked with our newest hop, Eclipse. We make that available through our supply partner and related entity over there in the UK, Simply Hops. How did you find it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing a lot recently with some of the new experimental varieties. As a brewery ourselves, we've kind of always really focused on 4 hops since we started, and especially since I've been part of Vocation. And them 4 hops were Simcoe, Citra, Mosaic, and Galaxy. Them 4 big hitting hops have always been part of Vocation's identity, because they are big, impactful hops. And as we've grown and as we've started to do more beers into some of the national retailers, and our brands have kind of gained, you know, real strength in some of their markets, we've had to branch out to try and keep people, you know, interested in the product, which is happening in the UK, because so many people are producing so many good beers. And one thing that we focused on quite heavily last year was trying to get a lot of these new varieties that were coming out, especially the States, and trying to get some out of Australia as well. But we did a run of some beers last year. We did like the HBCs, 472s, 431s, 586, 692. And we've just released one going into one of the big retailers in the UK, into Tesco, which is 630, which is more of a subtle hop. But we've tried to use these experimental varieties as much as possible. Now, one thing we were aware of is we heard of this new variety coming out of Australia, this HP, I think it was HP016. We'd seen it around and we're really interested to try and get hold of it. And we were pestering our supplier of hops in the UK to say, get us some of this hop as soon as we can get a chance, get me this hop, because we'll use it and we'll make a really good beer and we'll try and showcase the hop to the best of its ability. So yeah, as soon as we got the chance to get it, we got some Eclipse. We heard about the, you know, it was getting named and stuff. So we're like, yeah, that's brilliant. Let's get some over to the UK and brew with it. And we managed to get hold of some came in, I think it was maybe, I don't know now, 3 months ago or something like that. We got around 60 kilograms, which it seems like quite a lot for some of the small brewers in the UK, but for us, that's not much. So we had to do like a half batch, and we had to specifically put it all into the dry hop to try and get as much of this hop flavour as we could into this beer. We struggled to think which style to do it best, because we'd seen that some of the beers that were being made over in Australia were sometimes a little bit lower strength, but we thought, no, let's go for something that we know we can make, a big 7% New England style IPA. So what we tend to do with our IPAs, especially when we're using hops like the Galaxies and the Victoria's Secrets from Australia, we try to keep them out of the hop side, because we tend to find the impact that I have on the cold side is much more significant, and we get that real, you know, big passion fruit sort of fruity flavors from them. Now with Eclipse, we did the same. So we used a load of Citra Incognito in the kettle, kept the bitterness super low and super smooth, and then just hammered it as much as we can with the Eclipse during fermentation. So we hit it straight away. We hit it day one, we hit it day two, and then we give it a large charge at the end to try and impact as much of this flavor from this hop or this new varieties that we could, to try and showcase the hop as best as that way, you know, the best we could in the brewery. We were all absolutely over the moon with it, you know. Just from the sniff on the hop, you got this beautiful sort of like sweet mandarin smell, this fantastic aroma. And one of the brewers actually works quite closely with us guys on a lot of the new recipe development, said it felt like it was a more refined Galaxy. So it had this sort of like, you know, it had that same punchy sort of aroma, but it was a little bit more refined, a little bit more classy. And we got this sort of like classic orange sort of, one of the guys picked up on the pine flavors from this hop. But we were super impressed. So yeah, really great hop, really good beer. You know, the beer we released did really well, got some really good reviews, and hopefully it'll go on and do well and pick up in the market. We've already contracted a large amount coming over for next year as well already. So we're super keen on the hop. You know, we want to put it into one of our core products because we think it'll work really well. And it just goes to show what you can do with these new varieties. Obviously, there's a lot more that I've taken from America as well. So some of the HBCs we tried last year, obviously there was the 692, which has gone on to become Talus, which has got that kind of Sabro link to it, or at least it feels like that to us. We think 586 is going to take on. And I think using these experimental varieties that do come through from, you know, the likes of HPA and the likes of YCH and Haas and whatnot, there is a new way to get new flavors in these beers. And as a brewer, it's something we love to do at Vocation, and something, you know, that really does drive interest of the guys. It's especially poignant for us because our founder came out to Australia maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember him saying he was walking around farms and sniffing some hops and trying some beers, and he was like, "This is amazing, this hop's so good," and you guys are like, "Yeah, you're not going to get hold of any of that because it's not leaving Australia." So as soon as that chance came up to get some Eclipse, we were like, "Yeah, we got to get some over, man," and yeah, we're super happy we have done. And, you know, we think that this hop's really going to make a big impact in the market going forward.
That's hilarious. Have a listen to one of the other sessions we've got, which is about the breeding program, because it literally talks to that fact. It's like, we've got 3,000 hops here. All of them smell different, interesting, but you're not going to see them because they just don't stack up. It's the brutal reality of the hop breeding program. But gee, you've got you've got a wide-ranging, trial program there for whether it's the HPA experimentals or the HBC numbered varieties. Do you have a set approach to a new hop, or do you stay flexible? I noticed you mentioned, coupling Eclipse with the Citra Incognito, also quite an innovative product. Is that a sign of flexibility in trialing new hops?
We tend to take the approach based on kind of what information we get from the suppliers. So, I mean, one great example is we used 586 last year from HPC variety, from YCH it was, and we knew what we thought we were going to get from the hops. So it was like a pink grapefruit kind of aroma. We got the hops in. We can smell them on the rub, which gives you a limited indication of what might come through in the beers. Sometimes it does come through. And what we found with that hop, we needed to back it up with something. So we wanted to back it up with another hop in the kettle to try and bring out the best of that hop. And that's what we did with Eclipse. We felt the flavour, and we found that, using Citra with Eclipse works perfectly. That's kind of our method when we do the recipes.
Especially with say a limited quantity. You mentioned 60 kilos, not quite going all the way for a solo hop beer, for instance. So you've got to stay a little bit flexible there and complement that flavour. I noticed at the top you said Galaxy and Citra coupled in that last beer you were packing today. Have you got a favourite combo, or some commentary on the way? Have you got some favourites out there?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned from the top, we absolutely adore Citra. We absolutely adore Galaxy. Two hops that work so well together. Most in Citra, I feel, for me, work perfectly. I'm sure Jeremy and Justin have got similar, ideas of what they think works well. But Justin, especially, I know with the beers they're kind of making that lead to that soft sort of New England hazy style. The likes of these Galaxies and the likes of Victoria's Secret just work so well in these beers. It just lifts them to a next level. Most of them using Enigma in like these big passion fruit sort of like, fruited pale ales, and it just works so well. But yeah, we're a big fan of Citra and Galaxy.
Let's just pick up on that topic, because and I'll throw to Justin for some commentary here. As a hop grower, we've seen an explosion of new varieties being available on the market, but it's almost like we also see a lot of them not really get traction. And I think, Justin, if we're going to talk about like success of a new hop, it's got to be intimately linked with consumer trends. And your emergence as a leader in producing some of the most trendy beers at the moment is a great segue into your thoughts on consumer trends and how that's influencing use and selection of hops. Can you speak to that?
Yes, the hype beer train. We are on it. The hype beer train. Yeah, look, I think that consumer trends. I've been tasting IPAs for 20 years. And, I was going to say to Jeremy earlier, my first hoppy beer was in 1999. It was an Arrogant Bastard Ale in a 750 ml bottle that I had my buddy's older brother buy because we were 17. And that bottle was $8, and it was almost as much as the cost of the case of Natty Ice that we were buying with all the lunch money we scrounged. And from that moment, there was a separation in my mind of beer and then what we called good beer, which now is craft beer. But we had this, and good beer was anything, Corona, Canadian, Belgian, anything imported from the UK. Obviously, that's changed over time. But one thing that hasn't changed, and from what I see from a trend perspective, is flavor. People wanting flavor. And IPAs are now the dominant beer in the United States. And, from a craft beer scene, I guess. And that is, an important thing to look at when you think about everywhere else. And now everybody in Australia says, Australia is 10 years behind the US. You always hear that. And I don't know if it's true. I hear it all the time. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But, 5 years ago, a lot of breweries in Australia maybe releasing 1 or 2 double IPAs a year. It was like an annual thing. And they probably had 1 IPA or 2 IPAs in their lineup. And now you flash forward, and in the US, there's breweries, that's the only kind of beer they brew. That's it. And you look in Australia now, and you look at the amount of IPAs and double IPAs being released every week, and the quantity and quality of breweries have come up in Australia. And you see more flavorful and bigger beers coming out all the time. And that is a direct relation to consumer trends, because we always say here, oh, we brew beer that we want to drink. Yeah, okay, that's great. But we also have to brew beer that people want to buy. And you know what? 2 years ago, when we first started, we're like, we're going to make a double IPA. Let's see what happens. We're going to come out of nowhere with it. Fortune and Glory, a little Indiana Jones reference. Let's see what happens. And then the canning line was messed up. Matt, you know what I'm talking about. It was a disaster for like 3 days. And so then we had another double IPA. It came out at the same time. And it was like, oh, well, why don't we just release them both at the same time? And everybody in this brewery was on edge. On the edge of the seat, like, double IPA can release. We can't do that. We can't do two at the same time. It'll never work. We got 600 cases. It's going to be a disaster. In 2 weeks, it's sold out. And that really, for us, was this aha moment where it's like, there is a market for this kind of beer in a bigger sense. And, we're really lucky down here because, we have access to, American hops, New Zealand hops, and Australian hops. And like you said, Matt, Australian hops, Vic Secret all the way. I love Vic Secret, Vic Secret, Ella, Eclipse, Galaxy. I'd say Eclipse now is probably teetering on my love versus Vic Secret. It's a real hard one because I really, really like Vic Secret. And it's been in some of our best beers have been. But, I think we're extremely lucky to be down here and have access to it. It's still tough. You got to call OJ early in the year. You gotta be friends. You got to send him cases of beer. Make sure you can get that little amount that you're allowed to have. But it is amazing. And I think that the way that we use the hops and the higher hopping rates that we've kind of explored as our brand has kind of evolved has really just been a testament that people in Australia are looking for those more flavorful beers. So for me, when I go to Carwin Cellars or whatever bottle shop and I go in to buy an IPA, which I do a lot because I'm an IPA drinker. I'll admit it. I like my lagers, but I'm an IPA drinker. I'm looking at who made it, the ABV, the size of the can, what hops are in it, and then I look for a packaged on date. These are all big things for me. And one thing that we decided here is we're going to put how much dry hop we're actually doing, because for me, it's an important factor in a decision because hops aren't cheap, and if you put a lot of them in a beer, that beer's not going to be cheap. And so you need to like kind of give your consumer as much information as possible, in my opinion, to know what they're going to get into. So, I'm going to buy this beer. It's 24 grams a liter. Okay, I know what that is, and I know what that's going to taste like. And we're very popular among the hop growers because for a small brewery, I would say that our hop contracts are ridiculous because, the beers are kind of in that range. So, anyway.
Oh, absolutely, Justin. You're on my Christmas card list, mate. I'll send you the merchandise, right? Don't send me stuff. I'll send you stuff. Right? You just keep making those double IPA, 24 grams a litre. You're crazy.
All day long.
I love your reflections on the state of the industry out here, though, because, like a couple of things I'd like to say there. My little state of Tasmania in 2005, my little brewery that I was running was the only craft beer brewery in the state. There are now 28. Across the country, we've got multiple like estate-only, breweries growing their own barley and hops and taking it all the way through to estate ales. We've got breweries that are only blending barrel houses. They don't make their own wort stream. These are fascinating breweries for me because I ran out of talent and had to get out of brewing as trends changed. Let's be honest about that. Like right in this NEPA space on this haze train, there are breweries that are only releasing in this style. This is right in their wheelhouse. This is why they exist. It's a fascinating time, and more so than ever before. We are definitely not 10 years behind the US. We might have been there in the early days, of course, but it's a damn fine time, as I imagine it is in the UK. With some of your comments, Matt, and I know it is in the US because I've spent quite a bit of time there. It's a great time to be a beer drinker. So, Jeremy, over to you, mate. Talking about the US. So, your role sounds like almost the perfect job. Innovation and supply chain. It means you get a great excuse to come out to Australia and come on the hop farm and spend some time with me.
Yeah, no, it's I'm very fortunate, to be able to do things I get to do, and the travel is amazing. And coming over to your end of the world has been really, really just eye-opening. I mean, not to mention the fact that just the area where the hop farms are is just absolutely beautiful, just amazing. And then just to see, the differences in terroir. I coming from wine, I always have that terroir concept in the back of my mind, and I think there is something to it, and there's some really interesting hops out of Australia that you don't get anywhere else in the world, and I think that has to do with where they're grown and how the climate is, and the way the mountains and the water, etc. So you can look to the whole world and look at that as well as different areas, and in the U.S. as well. But yeah, I think it's special to be able to be in tune with your supply chain, right? To be able to actually have a connection and a relationship like we have, it's special. And we built this over years. And it's something that every year you can come together. Not last year, obviously, but at least we could do it virtually, and this year. But it's special because not only do you get to hang out and have fun and talk about your businesses and life and whatever, but you get to interact and share each other what your perspectives are. And, you can show me hops. And if you come out to the brewery, I can show you what we're doing with those hops in the beers. And you don't have that kind of connection in every industry, right? Our industry is pretty special. So I mean, if you want to just look at it from a supply chain avenue, it's really special, and I've been amazing to be part of that. And I remember 016. I remember you showing me that a few years back. It was picked, and it was in just this mesh bag, and you said, "Smell this," and I go, "Wow, that's pretty awesome." And we were able to do one of the earlier trials with that too, and it's neat to see a number progress and then become something. And I know a ton of those numbers don't go anywhere. And I always remember you and I, standing over at Bushy Park, and one of the breeders was with us, and you pointed at him and said, "Yeah, he's a mass murderer because he just tries to kill all these things off." And that's what you have to do in breeding, right? You have all these hops, thousands of different, single lot, hops, and you need to whittle it down to just a few. And I'd like to think that, especially over the last 5 years, that you've had some help with those opinions and feedback from the brewers, and I've been able to send you trials for some of these experimentals, even though you're on the other side of the world. We're able to get those to you in a pretty quick amount of time. And we can share that feedback and see it in beer, because you can smell the hops in the farm, but obviously in the end, we got to make sure they're popping in the beers as well. So yeah, that interaction relationship has been really special, and it's something that we have as an industry that not every industry has.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of the things that we value the most and is so important to our success from taking something from a numbered variety in a field or in a Hessian bag at Bushy Park and rubbing it and say, "That's pretty cool, isn't it?" to actually making it a commercial reality is that feedback loop. And, it's actually, all of you guys here today play a really important role in feeding back even on basic stuff like overall preference, like, did that make a delicious beer or not? That's really important to us. Uniqueness and character and everything's really, really, really important. But like, oh yes, that's a nice Mandarin note there, but I don't know, I just didn't go much on the beer. We actually start to pick up some of those trends if people continually feed back. And this sort of special relationship is where we get on farm and we can actually talk to each other about what we value and what we see, and speak openly and keep that feedback loop really short. And it actually is mission critical to us bringing a new hop to market, to have that frank, trusting, safe space to have honest feedback and say things like, "That guy over there," and I know exactly who it was Dr. Simon Whittick. "He's a mass murderer. He's just wielding the axe on these varieties flat out because he has to, because how do we get one to progress right up and float up above the rest and become the winner of that race to become commercialized?" So yeah, that it is a rare industry. It is a unique piece of an otherwise cold, heartless supply chain that I really enjoyed. Actually, it's one of the most satisfying parts of the job. And thankfully for the virtual program this year, because I've missed I've missed all that interaction piece, all the relationships, seeing all my mates on the farm and drinking a bunch of beers, whether it's in Melbourne or Hobart or out in the regions. So yeah, it is a special place. Jeremy, how do you take an on-farm experience and some sensory and then and learnings from your experience on farm, take them back to the brewery and have that inform innovation in a recipe sense? How do you go through that cognitive process of translating what you see on farm to what you want to taste in that beer?
Yeah, God, what a great question. You have your impressions. You're out on the farm and you're smelling these different hops, and I take lots of notes because my memory is not good, so I have to take copious amounts of notes and then think about it that night and write some more notes down and think about it back on the plane ride home. And I think that's when your gears start turning and you say, well, I smelled this one hop and it had a lot of orange or it kind of had like a little earthy edge to it. And we always approach, these hops as let's do a single hop first. We have a base IPA recipe and, it doesn't ever change, and we'll throw the same amount, pounds per barrel into this single hop version. And then we just evaluate it. So evaluate on its own. And then from there, I think you get a lot of good ideas. You might say, wow, this is a single hop. I remember Ella was like that. It was like, yeah, we could actually release that as a single hop beer. And we did as part of our Hop Revolver series. But sometimes you'll see that it's not like that, right? You're like, well, there's some interesting things going on there, but I wouldn't just buy that off the shelf. I don't think people are going to gravitate that as a single hop. So then you start thinking about combos, and there was some talk about Citra, as a good combo hop. And I'm drinking a beer right now, actually, that has Ella and Citra, and it's a fantastic combo. And I think you start playing around with that too. I think another thing to really keep in mind, and I think you get this discussion on the farm as well, is how these hops are progressing as they evolve. So, when you get to that year where you have enough to actually do brewing trials, maybe you do a trial on it and you're not that stoked on it. And I remember this happened with us with American public hop called Cashmere. We tried it and we thought, yeah, it's okay. But we kept trying it. The second year was a little better, and the third year was even better. And I think that's something that brewers need to keep in mind too. And again, I think you get more of that insight when you're on the farm and you're talking, with your grower, and you can see that progress and see what, from an agronomic standpoint, what their view and perspective on it is too. Like, yeah, this hop it produced better this year. And actually we figured out the picking window a lot better than we did last year. And I think that's really, really key. And it can go either way. It can get better or it can get worse, because we've had some hops that we were really excited about, and after a couple of years, it said, no, it was not disease resistant, or it just, the picking window sucked and the yields were horrible. And I think that's another thing that with this interaction between a brewer and grower that you're locked onto, because, OJ could call me up and say, hey, I know you liked this hop, but it sucks. We can't, you're going to have to give us a lot of money to be able to even grow it because it's just not sustainable. And I think that's something I've learned more than anything, is that you have to respect that part of the process, that don't totally fall in love with everything. And the other lesson is give yourself that space to fall in love with something that you didn't like previously, because as it evolves, it can get a lot better. So I think those are both, great points.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I can vouch for the fact that a breeding program experience and what we understand about a hop might actually evolve once it's in a commercial acreage and in the harvest window pressures and all of those things, plant age and us, and I can vouch for this, like, on-farm practices will get tweaked, specific nutrition or harvest window considerations, and hopefully the outcomes are better and better. But it is something that we are keenly aware of in that trialing sense, is that breweries only have a certain amount of resource to throw at trialing new hops, and there's heaps of new hops coming around. So we need to make an impression almost straight away. I feel like we get one shot. But if I also see, Jeremy, like your own program, and you say about multiple year trialing and giving yourself space to come back to a hop and fall in love with it if it didn't register initially. And that sounds like music to my ears, trying to pitch a new hop out there, because really, like, the cutting edge for me is, like, in most situations, you get that one shot, you get that one chance to really register on the mindscape of the brewer or drinker and say, yep, that's delicious. So I think that's a really important part to give something a go in a structured sense, a second or third time as it evolves over time. But just back to what you're drinking at the moment, Jeremy, you said Ella and Citra?
Ella and Citra, yeah. This is our Viking Space Probe, and it's actually
Viking Space Probe.
Yeah, so it's a hazy IPA in London Ale yeast. So you're getting some yeast characteristics in there as well. But perfect. It's a beautiful blend. Those two hops together are fantastic.
And so hazy with Jeremy, Justin. I know it's only early, but
people keep walking in the lab, and I really don't want to be seen with beer at 8 a.m. So I've got straight from the centrifuge. This is I know it's clear. What am I doing? It's a California style IPA, hypercolor. And, hopefully here in a few, probably we'll go on to the double juice train, which is our juice train is our flagship, hazy IPA, NEPA style beer using Amarillo, Citra, Simcoe, and a big whack of Galaxy. So the double version is just an amped up version of that. We canned it yesterday.
Nothing you said just then surprised me at all, Justin. It was this, that hop, and we doubled it.
Yeah, we doubled it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
You're fulfilling all my hopes and dreams here, mate. Thank you. Matt, we've got a hazy, we've got an IPA and a hazy. What are you drinking, Matt?
I've actually got the Eclipse beer. So the one that we produced with you guys. It's actually, I was just looking at the base of the can. It's just over 4 months old now, and I'm just trying it. It's held up really, really well. So it still looks great, still tastes great. It's just fantastic. I took a case back from the brewery and left it in my fridge, and I keep cracking one every now and again, and I forgot I'd had it in there. I must have pushed it to the back, and I've opened 2 over the last couple of nights, in preparation for this. And I'm like, bloody hell, that beer was absolutely fantastic.
I'm glad that someone else uses beer and the right beers to help them get in the headspace, just to really swat up on the topic. Yeah, that's how I work. Jeremy, a bit like you, I take lots of notes and I drink lots of beer because my memory's not so good. Guys, I'd like to say thank you again. We need to wrap up. We ask a lot of our audience to stay with us for these sessions, so I'd like to say thank you to all of you for your support of Aussie hops and what we're trying to do here with our unique Aussie varieties. Thank you for your insights. Thank you, of course, and most importantly, for making delicious beers. Jeremy over at Stone, Jeremy Mornier, thank you, mate. Appreciate you making time.
Thanks,
Justin, unfortunately, mate, you got to go back to work. It's only 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock now. And Matt,
I think it's going to be a long Friday.
Sure will be. Matt and yourself, mate, thanks. I understand that the 5 a.m. start and getting on the line, and I really do appreciate you making yourself available for us for a chat.
No problem at all. Thanks a lot for being a part of this. It's been fantastic.
All right, guys, thanks very much. A huge thank you to everyone who was part of this session. If you missed some of the action because you couldn't understand our Aussie accents, a recording will be uploaded to hops.com.au/virtual-harvest. For further information, please email info@hops.com.au, and we hope to welcome you all on farm again soon.